Her boss offered to walk her to her car, but what he confessed along the way changed her forever. She sets the scene. Quiet office late at night, alone with her boss, Daniel. He offers to walk her out, then, mid-walk, drops a shocking confession that leaves her reeling. Please stay with me as I tell you this story, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. It was around 10 p.m. The lights in the office were dim and most of the desks were empty. She had stayed back to finish a report. Daniel, her boss, stepped out of his glass office and offered to walk her down. He said it casually, like he always did. He had always been friendly, never made her feel uncomfortable. So she said yes, thinking nothing of it. They took the elevator down to the basement parking. It was quiet, with only the hum of the lights above. As they walked toward her car, Daniel suddenly stopped. His tone changed. The smile disappeared. Then he said something she never expected. He told her there was an internal audit going on. Someone was looking into missing company money. And then he admitted he had used her login to move the money. She froze. For a second, she couldn't speak. "What do you mean you use my login?" she asked, her voice shaking. Daniel looked at her, serious now. "It was the only way. I didn't think it would go this far." He tried to make it sound like a small thing, like he had no choice. But she knew what this meant. If they traced the money, it would all lead back to her. Her hands were cold. She felt like the floor under her feet had disappeared. Everything she had worked for, her name, her career, was in danger. And Daniel just stood there, acting like he deserved her silence. But something inside her woke up. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just looked at him and nodded, pretending to understand. But she had already made a choice. If he thought she would go down quietly, he was very wrong. She thought it was the perfect job, a big-name company, a generous salary, a modern office that made her feel important. It was everything she had worked for. When she got the offer, she felt proud, like her years of effort had finally been recognized. Her friends congratulated her. Her parents said they always knew she'd go far. And her new boss, Daniel, seemed like the kind of leader everyone admired. He was sharp, confident, and knew how to get results. People spoke highly of him, and she wanted to impress him from day one. The first few weeks went smoothly. She handled her tasks well, and Daniel often praised her work. He'd smile and say things like, "You're quick, I like that," or "You're sharp, just the kind of person I need around." It felt good to be seen. But then, small things started to feel off. A few co-workers made strange comments, casual remarks that didn't sit right. Someone once said, "Hope you last longer than the others," then quickly changed the subject when she asked what that meant. She noticed no one ever mentioned the previous assistant. It was like the person had vanished. Then Daniel started sending emails at odd hours, not about urgent work, just random thoughts, jokes, links to music, and sometimes questions about her personal life. He asked about her weekend plans, complimented her outfits in a way that felt too familiar. When she wore red one day, he said, "That color suits you too well. Dangerous." She laughed it off, told herself it was harmless. He never touched her. He never said anything clearly wrong. Still, the comments sat in her mind longer than they should have. She didn't want to seem ungrateful or dramatic. She had finally found a job worth keeping. So she smiled, responded politely, and ignored that uncomfortable feeling in her chest. She convinced herself she was being paranoid. After all, he was respected. He had power. Maybe she just needed to toughen up, but deep inside, something felt wrong. She knew it, even if she couldn't explain it yet. Looking back, all the signs were there. The whispers, the odd compliments, the strange silence about those who came before her. It was never just a job. It was a warning, one she chose to ignore. Daniel had a way of making everyone feel seen. He remembered small details, complimented people in just the right tone, and always made his praise feel personal. At first, she thought it was kindness. He asked how her weekend went, brought her coffee when she looked tired, and told her she was the kind of assistant every boss dreams of. It felt good. Who wouldn't want their boss to appreciate them? But over time, things started to blur. He'd stand a little too close during meeting. His hand would brush hers when he passed her papers, always quickly, always followed by a smile, as if it meant nothing. Once, while reviewing a file together, he leaned in so close she could feel his breath. She shifted away, pretending to adjust her chair. He didn't seem to notice, or maybe he did. He started asking questions that had nothing to do with work. "Are you seeing anyone?" he asked one afternoon while waiting for a Zoom call to start. "Someone like you must have a line of people chasing you." She laughed nervously, unsure how to respond. It wasn't enough to report. It didn't cross a clear line, but it made her feel like something invisible had changed. When she stayed late, he'd stay too. Sometimes he'd bring snacks, act like it was a casual coincidence. But she noticed he never stayed late when she wasn't there. He even once joked, "I should start charging you rent for keeping me here after hours." She forced a laugh, but inside, her stomach twisted. It all felt wrong, but looked innocent from the outside. Then, one day, she received a LinkedIn message from someone she didn't know. The account had no photo, no job title, just a name she didn't recognize. The message was short. "Be careful around Daniel. I was in your position once. He's not what he seems." She stared at the screen for a long time. Her heart pounded. She read the message over and over. She didn't reply, didn't tell anyone, but she couldn't stop thinking about it. She started seeing things differently. The compliments, the messages, the accidental touches. They weren't random. They were calculated. She realized Daniel had been testing limits, slowly, carefully, while making her feel special. It wasn't kindness. It was control, dressed up in charm. And now, she couldn't ignore it anymore. Something inside her had shifted. The warning had landed exactly where it was meant to, right in her gut. It goes back to that night, the night everything cracked. The office was quiet, the kind of silence that settles after long hours of work. Most of the lights were off, and the building felt hollow. She was finishing up a report when Daniel appeared at her desk, smiling as usual. "It's late. I'll walk you to your car," he said. It seemed thoughtful. She didn't question it. They took the elevator down in silence. The doors opened into the underground garage, dim and echoing. Their footsteps echoed softly on the concrete floor. That's when his voice changed. The warmth faded. His tone dropped lower, serious, almost tired. "I need to tell you something," he said, avoiding her eyes. She slowed her steps. He continued, "There's going to be an audit. They're looking into financials, my accounts." She blinked, confused. "Okay, why are you telling me this?" Daniel let out a long breath. "Because they're going to find things. And when they do, it'll all point to you." She froze. "What?" "I've been using your login. It was the easiest way," he said, like he was explaining something simple, like office scheduling. "Nothing personal, it just made sense. You have access, and no one would question it." She stared at him, her brain struggling to catch up. Her voice shook. "You used my credentials to steal money." He nodded slowly. "Rerouted funds, shifted accounts. Nothing anyone would catch unless they looked hard, but now someone is. And when they do, the logs lead back to you." Her heart pounded. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I need you to stay quiet," he said calmly. "If you go to anyone now, you'll look guilty. The evidence is already stacked against you. But if you keep your mouth shut, I'll fix it. I always fix things." She couldn't breathe. The man she had once admired, who had charmed her with kindness, had turned her into a scapegoat. He had used her trust, her silence, and now he was asking for more of it. She said nothing, just nodded slowly, her face unreadable, her mind racing. He gave her a small smile, as if it was settled, as if they had a deal. But in that moment, something inside her shifted. Fear gave way to something colder. This wasn't a mistake. It was a plan. She had just walked straight into it. She didn't know what she would do yet, but she knew one thing for sure. She wouldn't go down quietly. Panic hit her the moment she got home. Her hands trembled as she opened her laptop, heart still pounding from the garage conversation. She typed up everything she could remember, every detail, every word Daniel had said. Then she tried to email HR, but when she pressed send, the screen flashed an error. Message undeliverable. She tried again. Same result. She opened her sent folder. Nothing. The email had vanished. She didn't sleep that night. The next morning, she arrived early, before most of the office had even turned on the lights. She logged into her computer, ready to try again, but her access had changed. Certain files were locked. Some folders she had created were gone. Worse, there were documents she didn't recognize. Fake spreadsheets, suspicious transfers, all under her login. Her name was on things she had never touched. Her pulse raced. She clicked through her history, trying to find the original reports. They weren't there. Everything was being rewritten. She jumped up from her desk and rushed to HR in person. The office was strangely empty. The one manager who was always there wasn't in yet. The receptionist gave her a tight smile. "They're in a meeting all morning. You can send an email or leave a message." "I've tried. It's not going through," she said, voice shaky. The woman frowned, then quickly changed her tone. I'm sure it's just a tech issue. It happens sometimes. She walked back to her desk, trying to calm herself, but everything felt wrong. Her drawers had been locked the day before. Now they were slightly open. She pulled them out. Empty. Her notebooks, sticky notes, even the flash drive she kept hidden in the back, gone. Everything she could have used to defend herself had vanished. That's when Daniel appeared behind her. Everything okay? He asked softly, but there was no warmth in his eyes anymore. No fake charm. Just cold calculation. She stood, facing him. You took everything. You're framing me. He didn't deny it. Instead, he leaned in slightly and said, if you go down, you'll go down hard. Theft, fraud, breach of trust. It'll ruin you. But if you stop now, stay quiet. Maybe we can clean this up together. She stared at him, stunned at how calm he was, how easily he spoke like a villain reading from a script. This wasn't panic, it was a performance. He had planned it all, and he thought she was too scared to fight back. For a moment, she almost believed him. Almost. But then, something hardened inside her. She was trapped, yes, but she wasn't broken. Not yet. And she wasn't done. Not by a long shot. She sat in her car after work, hands gripping the steering wheel, heart pounding with fear and rage. She had no proof, no support, and nowhere to turn. Every move she made, Daniel was 10 steps ahead. But then one name came to mind. Julia. Julia was quiet, always buried in spreadsheets, barely speaking unless spoken to. Most people overlooked her, but she had been with the company longer than anyone else in their department. And there was something in the way she avoided Daniel, something that now made sense. The next day, she found Julia in the break room, alone with her tea. She hesitated, then said, "Can I talk to you? It's important." Julia looked up, surprised, but nodded. They stepped outside. She took a breath and spilled everything. Daniel's confession, the missing evidence, the altered files. She expected disbelief or maybe sympathy, but what she got instead was silence. And then Julia said, "He did the same thing to me." Her stomach dropped. "I used to be his assistant and more," Julia said, eyes on the ground. "He was charming, kind, until he wasn't. When I started asking questions, things went missing. My emails disappeared. HR turned on me. I was called in, told to resign quietly. I got a payout and a thick NDA, but I lost everything." Julia's voice was steady, but there was pain behind it, years of it. She had been destroyed quietly, erased like she never mattered. She stared at Julia, shocked. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because no one would believe me," Julia replied. "And I was scared. But now you're here, and he's doing it again." The fear that had been choking her chest slowly turned into something sharper. She wasn't alone. She wasn't crazy. And Daniel wasn't invincible. "We can stop him," she said. Julia gave her a long look. Then, for the first time, she smiled. "Yes, we can." That night, the two of them sat together after hours, whispering plans over coffee and open laptops. They started tracing files, saving records, looking for cracks in Daniel's perfect mask. He thought he had buried them both. He didn't know they were still breathing, and this time, they weren't afraid. She knew the only way to bring Daniel down was to play the game his way, so she smiled. In meetings, she laughed at his jokes. She even thanked him in front of others. She acted like everything was fine, like she had accepted his deal. But inside, she was boiling. Every fake smile was a weapon. Every polite nod was a step closer to revenge. While she played nice, Julia worked in the shadows. Late at night, after the office emptied, they stayed behind. Julia had once helped build part of the internal system, and though her access had been limited, she still knew how to get in. With quiet fingers and calm focus, Julia navigated through buried folders, hidden accounts, and deleted emails that had never really been deleted. What they found was worse than they expected. There were wire transfers to unregistered vendors, blackmail emails typed from Daniel's personal account, attachments that threatened people in the company if they spoke out. And then something strange, an email trail referencing a phone, one that wasn't listed on any company device logs. A burner. They searched Daniel's office after hours. Julia distracted security with a system update request while she picked the lock. Inside his bottom drawer behind a false panel, they found it. A black phone. No wallpaper, no case. Just messages, transfers, voice memos, everything. The phone was the key. It held proof of every crime, every setup, every cover-up. She sat in the break room staring at it, hands shaking. "We have enough. This could destroy him." Julia looked at her seriously. And us, if we're caught. It was true. Just possessing that phone could get them fired, arrested even. They were now walking a razor-thin line, but they were done being victims. To cover their tracks, Julia started creating backups on encrypted drives. They stored copies in 3 different locations. Nothing was left in one place. Every night, they checked the phone, then put it back exactly how they found it. Meanwhile, she kept her act perfect. She complimented Daniel's leadership in front of the team. She asked for advice. She even brought him coffee. And Daniel, arrogant as ever, believed it. He thought he had won. He didn't notice the side glances between her and Julia. He didn't see the USB drive Julia handed her behind the printer. He didn't know the walls were closing in. They had the proof, the plan, the trap, and soon Daniel would walk right into it. The reports went out at exactly 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. Emails were sent to the board, to HR, and, anonymously, to a few key media outlets. Inside those files were months of data, transfers, threats, voice memos, and the burner phone's entire backup. Everything pointed to Daniel. His polished image cracked in seconds. The office buzzed with tension. HR called an emergency meeting. Daniel didn't show up. Whispers spread like wildfire. A few people were crying. Others were quietly celebrating. Julia sat calmly at her desk, sipping tea, while she kept refreshing the news. By noon, the first article dropped. Headline: Top exec caught in corporate fraud scandal. Daniel was suspended within the hour. HR acted shocked, said they'd look into it, but the way they moved, the way they asked questions, you could tell they knew more than they had ever admitted. Maybe they'd protected him, or maybe they were just scared. Now, with investigators combing through every file and every report, no one wanted to look guilty. Later that evening, her phone buzzed. Daniel. He sent a message. We need to talk. Please. I'm being set up. Meet me. Just for 5 minutes. She felt her chest tighten. This was the part she had prepared for, but it still made her stomach twist. She replied, Okay, 1 coffee, 1 time. They met in a small cafe near the office. He looked different, tired, frantic, like the mask had finally cracked. His hands shook as he spoke. I know you think I did this, but I didn't, he said, leaning forward. They're trying to ruin me. She nodded slowly, listening, pretending to care. But inside her purse, a small voice recorder was running. Every word he said was another piece of evidence. He slipped up more than once, mentioned money, admitted using her login, even tried to flatter her, saying she was smart enough to understand how the game works. When he left, desperate and still pretending to be innocent, she exhaled and turned off the recorder. By the next morning, the audio file was in the hands of the lead investigator. Daniel wasn't just suspended anymore, he was finished. Daniel was officially fired by the end of the week. The company sent out a cold, formal email. Effective immediately. Daniel Reed is no longer with the company. No reason, no details. Just a quiet burial of a man who once walked those halls like he owned them. But she knew the truth, and so did Julia. Not long after, she was called into a closed-door meeting. HR, legal, and someone from the board. Their faces were tense but polite. They offered her a settlement, a generous one. All she had to do was sign a non-disclosure agreement. Stay silent, forget everything. She smiled, took the deal, signed the paper, shook their hands, and later that night, she sent everything, the files, the phone recordings, the server logs, to a journalist she trusted, someone who cared more about the truth than corporate image. Within days, the story went public in full color. Headlines, social media, interviews. The company scrambled. They couldn't stop it. The truth was too loud to bury this time. Julia quit the next morning. She walked out of the building without looking back. No email goodbye, no final meeting, just peace. The kind you get when you finally finish something that's haunted you for years. She stayed a little longer, tying up loose ends. Everyone treated her differently now, like she was dangerous. A few whispered behind her back. Others avoided her completely, but she didn't care. She wasn't the same woman who smiled politely at her desk, hoping to be noticed. That version of her had burned away the night Daniel confessed. Now she was sharper, more careful. She checked everything twice, watched people closer. She had learned that kindness can be a mask, and that power always has a cost. Revenge felt good, not happy, not joyful, but right. It gave her back control, gave her voice to the silence she was forced to swallow for months. But it didn't come without a price. She didn't sleep well. She questioned people more. The world looked colder now. Still, she didn't regret it. Not one bit. She lost a part of herself in that fight. But maybe it was a part she didn't need anymore. There's one last thing she hadn't told anyone. She knew. Long before that night in the garage. Before Daniel confessed. Before the panic. Before everything fell apart. She had already seen it coming. Weeks earlier, she'd found traces of the embezzlement. A folder he thought was deleted. An email thread carelessly left behind on a shared drive. He had been sloppy, and she had been paying attention. Quietly, carefully, she connected the dots. He was stealing money, using her login, setting her up to take the fall. But she didn't report it, not right away. She waited. She began to act like she hadn't seen anything. Played along, let him feel safe. She smiled at the right moments, asked innocent questions, left small hints that she was still loyal. She allowed him to feel like he was still in control. All the while, she was watching him dig his own grave. That night in the garage, when he confessed everything, she wasn't shocked. It was exactly what she had been leading him toward. His panic was her cue. His downfall was her design. And when it finally happened, it played out just as she had planned. Everyone thought she was just caught in the crossfire, that she'd barely made it out. But the truth was darker. She had lit the match. She had watched it all burn from the shadows. She wasn't a victim. She was the trap. Do you think she did the right thing by setting the trap? Or should she have reported Daniel the moment she found the evidence? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know what you think. And if you want more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a moment.